basically kind of determines what type of loan product you get, or even if you get any product at all.
That makes sense. So I'm going to jump back to when we were talking about land trust. Land trust. Okay, yeah. Land trust is located in Albany, New York, correct?
Yes.
So for people that is interested in purchasing a house through land trust, what's the 411 with land trust? Fill us in.
So I believe you have to go through AHP to kind of inquire about purchase of property through land trust.
What's
but
HP?
AHP, Affordable Housing Partnership.
Affordable Housing Partnership.
The thing with the land trust is that they own the land to preserve its affordability. So you will own the building, not the land. So if you, to my understanding, if you sell the building, it's likely that you're just breaking even because the land is what kind of appreciates versus the actual structure of the home.
But you technically still own the home, so you can sell it. It's not like
so you can sell the home. You can get proceeds. But I'm not even 100% if there's like a limit on how much proceeds you can get too. So it's like, so the land trust owns that land to preserve affordability. So I don't think they will allow you to buy a building for 130 and then sell it for like maybe 180.
Right.
Especially if they own the land is not appreciating.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But then there's also other, there's Habitat.
I was just about
to okay.
No, are they similar? Like, because I don't really know much about Habitat at all.
So Habitat for Humanity, they are like housing developers essentially. So they take properties. So they buy, blighted properties, vacant properties. They've, worked with the land bank, partnered with the land bank previously to kind of buy those properties. They rehab it. And then there's a Habitat product. So you go through and you kind of income qualify through them, and they have their kind of their process. But the good thing about Habitat, their rates are not as low. Like their loan product is not as sweet or as nice or favorable as quote unquote like NACA. But you can stack grants, and I've personally worked with people who had a Habitat property and was able to utilize like local grants with their properties, like within their mortgage to purchase.
Oh, wow. So being that you brought up grants, let's touch that topic. Where would people find those grants? How would they qualify? Where would they find them?
So in the city of Albany, there is Albany Community Development Agency. Essentially, they're the granting agency within the city. They have TARP grant, which is for essentially like investors. So if you have tenants, I believe it's a matching grant up to $15,000, and they kind of help you, rehab your property. So that might be, something that you might want to look into. The vacant.
Say that again.
Nah, I got you. I'll provide some links for you so you can kind of send out the info. The vacant building rehab grant, its lasted money is up to $50,000. You have to prove essentially though that you have the rest of the funding. And then that, that's gap financing, which kind of goes, at the end. And then they have HAP and HOAP, which essentially is supposed to help you buy like a single family home, multifamily home. I think the city of Albany and the city of Troy's grant process are a little different. TRIP and the city of Troy kind of work in tandem to administer their grants. So you do need homebuyer education, and you can get that through TRIP. You can kind of get that through frameworks. You can get that a couple different places, to be honest.
Do your program offer that?
It will.
Okay.
It will. So you'll need that to qualify for the grants. Most of the grants, you have to be a first-time home buyer, and that kind of means you haven't owned the property within the last 3 years. So if you own the property with your spouse and you're now buying as a single person, you qualify. And then if you've previously owned a mobile home where you're now buying a property like affixed to the ground, so a permanent foundation, you qualify as a first-time home buyer. And then a recent grant that Building Blocks is actually administering now is active. The Restorative Housing Justice Fund, which is funded by TUI Foundation. But essentially, it's up to $10,000 for African Americans looking to buy property in the city of Albany. and then it's up to 5,000 for African Americans within the capital region. So there are different grant options.
I didn't know it was that many. I really didn't.
Yeah, so there are different grant options, and I think that's also another reason why I started Building Blocks. I think like a lot of the questions you're like, well, she's just recreating the will. Like, why is she? Why is she doing it? You didn't know about it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like a lot of people that I come in contact that look like me, that look like us, they're like, well, I didn't even know. And it's like these companies, no shade, right? No shade, but these organizations been around 10, 20, 30 years, right? But Building Blocks is intentionally like, if you look at my marketing, I think you can clearly see who my target market is,
Make sure
right?
you follow her on Facebook.
Right? The website is launching soon too. But there's a difference because even, again, with these organizations that's been around, people are like, I had no idea. I have no idea where to start in the home buying process. Like I just don't know. And I'm like, to me, it's almost obnoxious the way that I'm trying to put like home ownership education in people's face, and they're like, we're in a pandemic. We don't want to buy houses. And I'm like, well.
Take those stimulus and do something positive with it.
Like, good news. If you didn't get laid off, you can still buy a house, right? Okay. You can still buy a house. But no, on serious note, I tell people, a lot of people, houses saved them during this pandemic. A lot of people, and you don't want to borrow against your house if you don't need to. Some people borrow against their house to do repairs and do different things. But people borrow against their house because it comes cash liquid and it's easy to get, right? And they are surviving this pandemic because they had an asset that they could borrow from. So you kind of have to think, and I'm like trying to tell people, think longer term, especially in the city of Albany, especially in the Tri-City area. There's so much development coming down the pipeline. You can buy a property anywhere, and I mean anywhere, and it will appreciate.
So why is it important, definitely for minorities, for us, for like this community, why is it important for us to buy back in our own community?
So I think the most important reason, and there's a couple of reasons, right? And I don't want to say the most important, but for me, just to know and to learn about the history of redlining, and then to essentially have.
Wait, not to cut you off. What is redlining? Can you explain that to our viewers for those that don't know?
Of course. So redlining, discriminatory practices by the banks, and they wouldn't lend, or really the housing industry. So that means insurance, appraisers, the banks, loan mortgages, and they wouldn't lend in certain neighborhoods according to the color coding. Green, obviously, as you can imagine, nicer neighborhoods. The racial makeup primarily whites, and then you go from I think it was like green, like orange, and then red, but red minority neighborhoods, and essentially they kind of use that color coding to not lend, but they kind of appraise to that, right? So if you were in a green neighborhood, your property naturally appraised, whereas you're in a red neighborhood, you go to Arpit Hill, some people are homeowners, right? But if you look up the value of their homes, they might have owned it the last 10, 15 years and it didn't appraise for nothing. Like, it didn't appreciate at all. So that's kind of another way how even present day redlining is still taking place. And that's why I'm like telling people, like, I don't care if you got to like take the stimulus check, your tax refund, your paycheck, you and your cousins got to go in, your whole family, like, you gotta buy property. You need to figure out how to get it, whether it's cash, credit. If you have the credit, I have the income. Like, we need to mix, kind of make that work. And if it's flipped, then we need to make that work. And if we're talking about rehab properties, if you have the cash or you have access to like a rehab loan or a construction loan, and I know how to, rehab properties, we need to make that work. Like, we kind of really need to unite and essentially pull on our resources as a community to rebuild and rebuy our communities. Like, I think, again, so redlining, just the history of redlining in Albany, guess what neighborhoods those are, right? Take a wild guess. Arbor Hill, West Hill, Sheridan Hollow, South End, right? North Albany. Those same neighborhoods, you look at the crime rates today, right? Look at the housing stock in those particular neighborhoods. How do those properties appreciate in those neighborhoods? So all those things to me are important. Even more important, knowing that there's tons of development coming. Lincoln Park, There's money been allocated to improve the park, make improvements in that area. What do you think is going to happen to those properties immediately adjacent to Lincoln Park? The values of the properties already have jumped. Already.
Lincoln, like by the pool?
Yes.
Oh.
And this is what I'm telling you. So the Skyway is supposed to be coming up. The Palace off of 787 or something like coming up, going to be right off Clinton. What properties you think is going to be affected? So yes, that's the hood right now, right? But when the Skyway is done, that's not going to be the hood no more, right? So we need to get in now. We need to put ourselves in a position. Like if you lost your job due to COVID, right? You can't buy a house, right? I'm not telling you shame on you lost your job. No, that's fine, right? But just know and be cognizant. There's still other ways to invest in real estate, right? You could start an LLC and be a partner and put in cash, and go in with a couple partners and buy properties, right? So it might not be like solely your name, but if you're a member of that LLC, you still reap the benefits. But yeah, so just kind of preventing gentrification, right? You can't buy a neighborhood you can't gentrify a neighborhood that's already owned.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So to me, two things is gonna happen. They're gonna what they did in New York City and what they did in Brooklyn, what they did in Harlem. How much do we want to leave? I don't want anything to, right? Because now you telling me my neighborhood is worth something. If you telling me you offering me money to leave, I ain't really trying to go nowhere, right? Especially a city like Albany, I think the housing, the price of the houses compared to a New York City, compared to a Boston, compared to a Connecticut, talking about, more major cities that are within, 3-4 hour radius, Albany is like a steal to buy a property. So just kind of seeing the opportunity up here, I would just hate to see, previously redline neighborhoods come back to life and us not be a part of that.
They be doing us dirty.
No, but so I think part of it is systemic, especially with real estate. Donald Trump. It was a big thing about him not paying taxes, and first thing he said, I was a real estate developer. What you mean? I'm not paying no taxes. There are there's tax abatements, tax cuts, tax loopholes. Real estate is it. Yeah. It's more than just like, I have a house. It's really like an investment tool to make money, create that equity, create that financial freedom, and then also have tax benefits as a homeowner and an investor.
So them people, Bob, Jilly, John, when Big Mom died, and they got Big Mom house, right?
Yeah.
And now you got Bobby, Ray, and Sean. They trying to sell Big Mom house. What should they do with Big Mom house?
They need to keep Big Mama's house.
Keep Big Mama house, y'all.
10 times out of 10 times out of 9, the house has probably been paid off, right? Mm-hmm. So the only thing to do on the house is maintenance and pay the property taxes. The property taxes can get steep, but we all in this room, like you said, grandma died. None of us want the house. Cool. Now we have a tenant, and now we all get rent every month, right? Mm-hmm. So there's ways to kind of keep that asset within the family and make it work for you. Not have it be a burden, essentially.
Right. Wow. Virginia, you're awesome. You're so informative.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go back to build our block together.
Building blocks together.
Build the block together. Sorry. I know you have a Zoom class coming up next week. Mm-hmm. Do you have any in line after that you'd like the viewers to know about? Or
so I really, 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 really want to launch this one-on-one program. So I'm probably not gonna have one for February, but resume monthly in March. So you'll probably see stuff in a couple weeks promoting for the March one and kind of for the rest of the year.
And we'll share her stuff. So if you guys follow Girl Get Up on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube, I'll be advertising it. Her information will be there. Virginia, I am ecstatic that you took the time out to come hang out with me today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
No, seriously, thank you. You're phenomenal. And it was so last minute, and you came through with the come through.
Of course. I think the only thing that you have to tell me, Virginia, we need you when you talk about real estate. And now I'm there.
Well, Virginia, we're going to bring you back.
Homeownership, real estate.
We're bringing you back. We're going to keep push this information down their throats.
Yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully, on the contract to get 21 Lex. So again, I kind of mentioned that earlier. That'll be the headquarters. Me and my business partner is really looking to kind of go into one of those quote unquote problem neighborhoods, but bring the program into those neighborhoods, right? Like I said, the difference between building blocks and a trip is that I'm going to actually myself going to hit the block and knock on doors and say, what's up?
She in the mud.
Right. You see? Listen, I'm from the Bronx. So these neighborhoods, this is home, right? This is home. I feel comfortable. Like, I don't feel no way about, going out and talking to my people realistically, because they're going to be like, man, I ain't buying no house. I got that before. And I'm like, well, why not? Oh, because XYZ. Listen, your aunt work for the state. Somebody got clean money, you go buy a house.
Right.
You got cash, you go buy a house.
Right.
There's deals on Zillow that say cash only buyers. When I'm telling you, they not asking questions, they just want to see the bank account statement. You good?
Sheesh. Well, I hate to leave you guys, but I gotta wrap it on up. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for staying tuned. Hopefully you guys stayed for the whole goddamn video. Hopefully you guys had your notebook and you wrote this stuff down. But if not, just come back when you need to and revisit it. Again, Virginia, or her information will be linked below. But make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And also follow me. And if it's anything that you guys want to know about or want to hear about, you guys can email me at girlgetuppcoaching@gmail.com. Or you can just hit me up in a little message box and I'll be chatting back with you guys. See you soon.